Welcome back, handymen and women. So I haven't posted, I think it's been a couple weeks now at this point. I think my last post was doing a move out. It's a series I'm starting about how to do move outs. And I was telling y'all while I was doing that I had like 5 move outs and a full interior paint job. So long story short, since then I've done 7 move outs. I'm at a move out right now, number 8. And the thing with move-outs is they all have deadlines, so it's not like they can get done whenever. You got to get on the ball and get on them right away. So in the last 2 weeks when I haven't been posting, I have worked literally, pretty sure at least 14 days straight. If I went and counted it up, it may be even more. But I know for sure I've been working every single day for a very long time. And I mean all day, every day. So I haven't gotten the videos posted, and I apologize for that. Luckily, I do have jobbers sponsoring the channel, so my first payment from them is actually going to be coming in a few days, which is going to really help out because then I can afford to take some time off. Right now, we're looking at a video I'll be making for the How to Do a Move Out series is going to be how to do the itemized estimates. And I actually stayed up last night until damn near midnight trying to film that video. And I was just too tired. I just kept making too many mistakes and it wasn't flowing correctly. And I'm a professional and I want to provide my clients with professionalism, and my video just simply wasn't good enough. So I'm at a move out today. It's mostly done. I think I've got 3 or 4 hours worth of work left to do on it. And then luckily I actually have 2 other jobs. This is like a little complex of condos, and I've got quite a few properties in here. And I have 2 jobs today that are actually in the same complex of condos. So that's gonna be real nice because I already have all the materials I'm gonna need for them. I'll just be able to wait until they're ready and then shoot over to their place, get the work done, and come back here and keep working the move out. Now let me tell you about 3 things that happened in this last 2 weeks that are absolutely insane. It's like 3 things in the last 2 weeks that you hopefully don't ever have to deal with in your entire life. And for me, all 3 came in a short 2-week period. So thing number 1 is kind of a smaller thing, but my dog broke her leg. She didn't just break her leg. She snapped the femur clean, and she snapped it at the joint, not at the straight part of the bone, but literally where that straight part starts widening out into the ball for the joint. She snapped it at the beginning of that ball, which is apparently the worst place to do that. So now we have to get her leg amputated. We're waiting for Monday because our vet that we're gonna be using is gonna be back in town Monday, and none of the other places are open over the weekend anyways for us to call. So gonna be amputating my dog's leg, so that's cool. $800 just to take her to the vet, just to be told that she has a broken leg that's gonna need to be amputated. That was a different vet. It's not the vet we usually go to. It's more like an emergency vet here. So yeah, it'd be nice to never have to amputate your dog's leg, but that's not the biggest one. The second biggest one is, unfortunately, and this was very hard for me, but I had to tell my son that he's not working with my business anymore. And I know that may sound like he did some absolutely horrible thing. He didn't, guys, but the thing is I always keep preaching on this channel, you've got to be the best. If you want to charge these prices, and if you want to be successful, and if you want your property managers to develop that loyalty with you, and to keep sending you work, and to have you just be their main guy, if you want that security for your family, you have to be on top of everything all the time. There are thousands of handymen out there charging $25 to $50 an hour with teeny tiny trip fees who are more than happy to come show up, and maybe they'll show up on time, maybe they won't, maybe they'll do a good job, maybe they won't. But there are a lot of those out there. So if you want to charge this kind of money, and if you want to get this quantity of work so that you can truly provide for your family, you have to be on top of things all the time. And I'm not going to go into any details about my son other than to say the reasons that I had to let him go. Those reasons, they're not, if I told you any one individual example, you'd say, it doesn't seem like really a huge deal. I mean, you know, you should say something to him about it, but you don't need to let him go. But the problem is it was many, 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 many of these. He was just, it feels to me like he's in a position where he doesn't have that drive and motivation to do what I'm doing. And I'm happy to help him. If he wants to be his own handyman with his own company, I'll happily help him for the rest of my life. I'll let him borrow my tools. He can call me 24/7 to ask questions. I'll even run over to his job and help him out on something he's having trouble with for free. But for him to do it under my company name, he has to be doing what I'm doing. And it doesn't mean he has to be as fast as me or have the same quality as me, but he has to put in the same effort as me. And the position I finally found myself in was I started losing work from one particular property management company because essentially, you know, without having experience, he was getting all of my easiest and most profitable jobs. And the reason they're the most profitable is because they're the easiest, because it's all the simple stuff that you don't need a lifetime of experience to know how to do right. But he wasn't staying on top of them. And I just can't have that. And there were enough warnings. And it finally just reached the point where I said, okay, now I'm losing business to the point that I don't have enough work to send to you. And I'm just not sending you any more work now. It's just that simple. And I absolutely hate it because he's my son. You know, we've bonded over doing this business together. We've bonded a lot over it. We've had a lot of moments where we got to work together and just spend time together, which is not something we've had a lot of time to do. But I had to make a call, and the call was I cannot risk losing my business, because if I lose my business, I have to go back into aviation maintenance, working avionics on business jets. And it's not bad pay, but it's nowhere near this. So if that happens, I'm gonna make less money. I'm gonna have to work tons of overtime, which means I won't be home, and I'm already never home. But my wife would also have to start working again, which means my boys would have to go into a daycare, which means they're gonna be raised by somebody else instead of me. They're gonna be eating whatever junk food that daycare serves. They're gonna be not getting their diapers changed as often as they should. Nobody's gonna take care of your boys the way that your wife is going to. Nobody's gonna love your children and care for your children the way that you and your wife, the way that the parents will. And I just can't have that happen. So I had to let my son go. And I kind of have my fingers crossed that there's going to come a day in the future where maybe he gets out there and figures out some of this on his own, or even just works with somebody else for a while until he starts picking up these skills of understanding that if you want to make this kind of money, you have to be on top of things. You don't get to take the easiest, most profitable jobs and just kind of casually do the number of them that you need to do to get by, and not treat it as if your goal in this life is to achieve greatness as a handyman. Because no, there's no greatness as a handyman, but you should be behaving as if that's your goal, because if that's what you're doing, that's gonna stand out, and that's how you're gonna get the work and the clients and the loyalty, which is what I have. So now what I'm doing is I'm having to build back up. I'm having to go, so I'm doing all the work I was already doing, but now I have to go do all the work that I was sending him. And no, it's not hard, because it is all the easiest work, but it is extra time. The only upside is it's also extra money, because it is my most profitable jobs. When you can knock out 3 smoke detectors in 15 minutes and then move on with your day and get paid that $125 for it, that's real nice. But I mean, to tell you the truth, I'd rather have my son working with me and kicking ass and watching the business grow than to not have him working with me. So now here's the third and final thing. If y'all have stayed with me for this long, this is gonna blow your mind. This is something that really should never happen to anybody ever. So I was driving to a job. It was actually the last straw. The reason I was going to this job was because my son was supposed to be there first thing in the morning. And I mean first thing in the morning, and he was aware of that. And long story short, he wasn't there. So that's when I finally let him know that that's just the last straw, and I got up to go do the job. It was going to be my only day off in the last couple weeks, and for like another week. It was gonna literally be the only day that I had off. And instead, I had to go do this job of his. So as I was on my way there, I went there, I did some stuff, I went to Ace Hardware. When I was on my way back, I screwed up listening to my GPS, missed a turn, got directed around a bunch of cones, and ended up coming down a different road that I otherwise wouldn't have been on. But I was coming down this road, and as I came down the road, I look over to the left, there's a Circle K, and where like the pavement for the Circle K goes down and meets the street, there's this guy laying on the ground next to a giant pool of blood. And there's another guy over him with his hand on his neck, and it didn't look like he was choking him. I could tell, it was very obvious immediately when I saw it. This guy's trying to stop bleeding, and there's blood all over the ground. Now, this is a really, really bad part of town. I'm talking about if you're at a Circle K in this part of town, you're either homeless or you're living in a trailer. And I don't mean living in a trailer is bad. I actually love trailers, but I'm talking about you're living in like a 50-year-old single wide next to a bunch of other 50-year-old single wides that cost like $400 a month and is falling apart. It's a sketchy neighborhood. Lots and lots of drugs, tons of crimes, shootings, stabbings. So the first thing I noticed was the guy on the ground that was holding the pressure to the neck. He looked really scared. He did not look like some kind of professional who was like, I'm gonna stop this bleeding. He looked like somebody who didn't know what he was doing and was very scared. So I flipped around real quick, pulled into the parking lot, ran over, and asked the guy if he needed any help. And I don't even remember exactly what he said, but I remember the gist of it was kind of gibberish. Like he didn't even know how to answer. He's like, I don't know what I'm doing. So a guy standing next to us who was already there when I ran up is telling the guy that's holding the neck, he's saying, hey, you gotta push harder, he's still bleeding. And it occurred to me, like, this guy, especially being on the neck, this guy probably doesn't have a clue, number one, how much pressure you need to stop bleeding like that. And number two, how much pressure is gonna be so much that you're gonna choke the guy out and kill him instead of saving him. And I'm not an EMT, and I'm not like overly trained, but I spent enough time in the military and with organizations that serve the military to have gone through quite a bit of this kind of training, as far as just CPR classes and first aid care classes and stuff like that through both the military and other organizations. So I figured at the very least, I'm likely not to be great at figuring out how much pressure to put and help save this guy's life, but I'm more likely to get it right than this guy is. So I asked the guy, do you want me to take over? And he said, yeah. So I took over and I was putting the pressure on his neck. And I'm telling you, man, the amount of blood was just insane. And it didn't even look like blood. It was almost like where it was running down from his neck. You know, it wasn't even running anymore. It was kind of coagulated in place and it was like puffing up. And it's probably because it was on like 140-degree pavement, but it was like puffing up, bright, like crimson red. And as I'm holding the pressure on the guy's neck, he's still breathing, but he's only taking a breath like every 10 or 15 seconds. So he's just kind of like trying really hard to get one breath, and then nothing for 10 or 15 seconds, and then one more. His eyelids are open, and his eyes are not rolled all the way back, but it's kind of like they're rolled halfway back. It didn't seem that he was conscious, but he was like floundering and stuff, which I think is because he was just wearing shorts and a t-shirt and he's on 140-degree pavement, but I wasn't focused on that. And I'm holding his neck and I keep telling him to breathe. I'm like, just breathe, man, breathe. And I'm not yelling, but I'm talking very loudly because I don't know how conscious he is or isn't, but I want him to hear me. And I'm just like, hey man, breathe. The cops are on the way. Just keep breathing, buddy. Just keep breathing. They're almost here. I can hear them coming. You're gonna be okay. This is gonna be okay. They're gonna get you to the hospital. And he just started looking worse and worse. His lips started turning kind of white, like bluish white, but everybody says blue. They didn't look blue to me, but it was a bluish white, like an ashy color. And he was still attempting to breathe. And then, dude, this is like the worst part though. So the first cop arrives on the scene, right? And I'm down here on the ground and somebody's dying under my hand. And this cop he's like this. This cop he has his little notebook and he just kind of walks up and he's like, just looking down at me. And he's like, what happened? And I was like, I don't know, man. I was just driving by and this guy was already like here holding pressure on his neck and I just took over for him. So I don't know what happened. I'm just trying to stop the bleeding. And he's like, okay. And he writes, and he turns to a car that's parked right here. I don't know why they are, but they stopped on the exit. And the cop turns to them and says something and is writing some stuff down. And the whole time I'm down here on the ground and I'm like, do I look like a fucking EMT? Like I shouldn't be the one right now fucking doing this. This isn't who I am. I stopped to help because I thought I might be some help because I have a little training like from a decade or two ago. But nonetheless, this cop is just, he should have ran to us. He should have ran. He should have run as fast as he could, got down on his knees next to me, asked what's going on, taken over. I know he has the training because he's a cop. They all have that training. This guy didn't care at all. Eventually, he finally knelt down beside me after, it seemed like 5 minutes, maybe it was 45 seconds or a minute, but it was way too long, I can tell you that. And he knelt down beside me and he asked me again, and again I told him, I don't know, man. I don't know what happened. All I know is I saw this guy on the ground and this other guy trying to stop the bleeding, and I pulled over to see if I could help. That's all I know right now. And at this point, the cop is just kind of sitting there watching me, writing stuff. He's knelt down with me. And finally the guy stopped breathing, and I kind of saw a change in his whole body where he just kind of went limp, and his eyes went, again, not all the way back, but now they're almost all the way back. Like they rolled the other halfway and I could barely see like the edge of where the color would be. And I'm like, he's not breathing, man. And the cop's like, yeah, he is. And I look down because the guy's stomach is like contracting, but I've been sitting there holding pressure on him. I know how he's breathing. He's got a bunch of blood in his lungs. And I can hear him when he breathes, and he wasn't breathing. He was just holding his mouth open and contracting his stomach, probably because his lungs were probably full of blood at this point, and there was just nowhere to take the air into to begin with. And the cop's like, no, he's breathing, he's okay. And I'm looking around like, where's the ambulance? And finally I hear somebody say, here comes the ambulance. So the ambulance comes up real fast, pulls over to the side, and at about that point, that same time, like 2 or 3 other cop cars showed up at the same time, and all those cops converged. And the cop I was talking to as the others were walking up was like, okay, let's lift up the compress. So I take my hands off and he lifts it up, and that's when I saw his neck. And it's, imagine a mouth, like look at the size and shape of my mouth, like corners on the ends, and then just a big like oval shape to those corners. That was in his neck. It was this wide, just slit clean open and split wide open. There was no more blood coming out, which, because he didn't have any more, I'm assuming, because all of it, a person's worth of blood was on the ground next to me. And all he's doing at this point is just like twitching, basically. So the other cops came in, and as soon as they came in and came down, like I got up and backed away, and I'm just watching like, holy shit. This guy just died, like while I was doing this with him. And so one of the cops that came up was like, hey, everybody, I need you all to come over here. Nobody leave. I need to get statements from everybody, so do not leave. And I've got this stupid mailbox that I have to go do that was supposed to get done first thing in the morning, like first thing in the morning. Now I have to go do this mailbox, and it's important because if my property manager finds out, I had to make a specific phone call to this property manager and say, hey man, I know the deadline on this mailbox is today. I'm aware that the post office gave 14 days and yesterday or today is the last day. We had it on the schedule. We were gonna get it done, but I need some help on this paint job. So is it okay if we do it in the morning? And he was very hesitant, and I promised him, like I guaranteed him, I said, man, I promise you, if you let us put this off till tomorrow, I promise you, we will be there first thing in the morning before the mail ever comes. We will be there with a new mailbox, and this is gonna get taken care of. So I can't just hang around this crime scene now. I can't just hang around this crime scene waiting to give a statement, because I'm scared that my property manager, after I promised him profusely to please let me just do this job in the morning, even though the deadline was the day before, I have to go. Like, I can't have him thinking that I don't keep my word, right? So I told the cop that told everybody to walk over there, I just went up to him and I was like, hey man, I gotta go. So you can take my name and number if you want, but I'm not hanging around. Because I'm also aware, and don't get me wrong, I don't dislike the police, but I'm also very aware that they think they have more authority than they do, and I don't let them pull that shit on me. You know, they don't get to decide that I can't leave. I didn't witness the crime. I'm not a witness. I just stopped to help somebody after a crime had been committed. So I told the cop, I was like, I gotta go. I'm gonna give you my name and number. So he took my name, my phone number, and my birth date, and I left. He didn't give me a hard time at all. He wasn't an asshole about it. I couldn't stay. So then for the next 2 days, I didn't know if this guy died or not, you know, because the ambulance was there. For all I knew, they could have started CPR and put some blood in him and kept him barely kicking until they got to the hospital or something. I don't know how shit works, but I do know that it looked like he died because he stopped breathing and his eyes rolled back and his body stopped sort of convulsing and doing things. So for like 2 days, almost 3 days, you know, I kept searching online and stuff and couldn't find anything about it at all. And then finally, yesterday, I finally found an article that said that the woman who stabbed him was arrested and he did die. He was pronounced dead upon arrival at the hospital. So I assume he died under my hand. Maybe, because I don't think they pronounce death like in an ambulance. I think they're just doing CPR and everything else they can, and then they get to the hospital and a doctor pronounces them dead. So that was crazy. And I'm not gonna call it trauma because I feel like the word trauma is overused. I think everybody wants to be able to claim that they've experienced trauma because it somehow makes them a victim. So no, I'm not traumatized, but I'll tell you what, it's not something you want to go through. It's just not good. Like, I don't like it because I've gotten choked up at times just remembering. It's been on my mind a lot since it happened. And I'm a dad. And I don't know how my boys are going to turn out. I hope they turn out good. And that's partially why I work so hard, both to provide and to make sure I'm being a good father. But this guy was somebody's little boy. Like, if his parents aren't dead, that's somebody's little boy. And then I have to wonder, like, did I put too much pressure and block his airflow and that's why he stopped breathing? Or did I not put enough pressure and too much blood was allowed to continue to come out and that's why he died? And I don't know. I'm not getting choked up here because I may have been the one to cause his death, or rather because had I been better, maybe I could have prevented it. I'm choked up because that's somebody's little boy. And everybody you meet is somebody's little boy. You know, my son that's not working with my company anymore, he's my boy. He's not my little boy. He's a grown man, but he's his mom's little boy. He's his grandma's he's somebody's little boy. My relationship with him is very man to man. He's my son, but I try to make sure not to treat him like a child. But I just think of, like, that could have been him, you know, any number of things in his life could have gone wrong. And just that quickly, somebody at a Circle K can just slash his neck, and before the cops and ambulance even get there, he can just bleed out before literally anyone even has time to attempt to save him. So, yeah, I'm not gonna call it trauma, but it hasn't been fun. And on top of that, there's my dog breaking her leg and having to tell my son that he's not working with me anymore. So it's been a really, really rough couple weeks, on top of not seeing my family because I've worked literally every single day, all day. Even when I'm not gone from the house working, I've been in the office trying to get all the admin stuff done. So it's been crazy, but you know, I got 7 move-outs done. I'm on move-out number 8, which is one that my son had started, but he wasn't yet finished. So I'm taking this one over and finishing it up. I've got plenty of work left to do, luckily, so I'm not out of work at all. And I'm not behind. I was very worried I would get behind, but I'm staying on top of things. So yeah, that's the update, guys. This is it's been a crazy couple weeks. I do want to tell y'all again, I think I mentioned it at the beginning, maybe I didn't. I'm doing part 2 in my How to Do a Move Out series. Y'all did the inspection with me before. So the next thing we're gonna do, again, yeah, I did tell you, because I was up until like midnight trying to do this video last night. It's how to do itemized estimates and why you wanna do those itemized estimates for your vacant properties. I'm gonna try to knock that out tonight. However, that one is specifically tuned into using Jobber to do this. It's gonna be useful for everybody. Even if you don't use Jobber, it's still gonna teach you how to do itemized estimates, but it's gonna be very geared towards the specifics of doing itemized estimates with Jobber software, because I think it does them the best. So with that video, I'm gonna need to make it, and then I'm gonna need to send it to Jobber just so that they can make sure that I didn't say anything I'm not supposed to say, or that I do say the things that I'm supposed to say. You know, like there's what's called deliverables, and I'm not getting into specifics with the contract, but when you do these sponsorships, there's deliverables, and the deliverables have to do with, you know, like X number of minutes of talking about the company and making sure, you know, like I have to make sure that I mention, you know, that I have my link for you to click in the description, which I do, by the way, in this video. Go to the description. Actually, it may not be there when you watch it, because I'm gonna be putting that in when I get home this evening. So if you watch it today in the middle of the day, the link isn't there yet, but it's on tons of my other videos. But I gotta make sure I've got the link in the description, etc., etc. So I've gotta send them the video. They don't ever have any issues, you know, because it's just me talking about what I do. And that's what they asked of me to begin with, was they said, hey, we noticed that you've already been promoting Jobber. The only difference now is we want to support you while doing that. We appreciate that you've been promoting us when we weren't paying you, and we would like to give you something in return for that, because we like what you're doing and we see that you have good, loyal followers. So I got to send them that video once I do it today. I'm guessing it'll get approved tomorrow, and I'll either post it tomorrow or the next day. But it's gonna be a very good video. You're gonna learn everything you need to know about that Jobber software in terms of how to put something together that when your property manager receives it and shares it with a homeowner, they're gonna look at it and they're gonna say, this is so perfect. Like, this is what I expect from a larger, like say from a heating and cooling company, like a big expensive, the one that's got all the commercials on the radios. It's gonna be even better than that, in my opinion, even higher quality than those invoices and estimates and stuff. But that's what we're doing next. So I gotta get out of here, I gotta get to work. I've still got this move out to do and the other 2 jobs in this complex. Sorry I got emotional on y'all, but it's been a crazy couple weeks, and I haven't got a lot of sleep, and I haven't got a lot of time with my family. I really just want to get all this work done. My twins just turned 2, and we have their birthday party on the 17th. So that's the first day that I know for sure I'm gonna have off. I'm probably gonna take one. Actually, no, I'm working a job that morning, a job that has to be worked that morning. So, but the day before their birthday, I'm probably going to take off to get prepped for the birthday. And then on their birthday, I've got one quick job in the morning, but then I'll be home for the rest of the day. My mom's coming in from Texas, and that'll be cool. So I hope y'all are out there killing it. Thanks for sticking with me through this whole video. I'll talk to y'all later.